Well, shooters and reloaders out there, you might wonder what we're doing. And I'm taking clean, polished, wet tumbled 44 Magnum brass, and I'm verifying the case length. So I've got my micrometer set for the maximum length that a 44 Magnum case is allowed to have, 1.285. And I'm checking to see if any of these 44 Magnum cases that are fired multiple times is longer than the maximum overall length. And most of the brass goes through the micrometer with distance to spare. As you can see here. See, I can actually see air between the length of the case. Can you hear that? And the overall maximum setting. See, hear that? These cases are all well underneath the maximum overall length. And if I go ahead and keep doing this, I'm going to find that all these pass muster. And all these I've got to check. The fired 44 Magnum brass is not even close to being too long. I think of all these in here, there might have been one that was just barely getting up there, but it was still shorter than the maximum overall case length. So this is my experience early on in my shooting career. So I figured out that I don't need to ever trim straight wall pistol brass. It just never gets long to the point where it's a problem. 1.285. You hear that? 1.285. The brass just doesn't ever get close to being too long. So why waste your time measuring all your brass? Why waste your time even thinking about trimming all your brass? If you do want to trim it, the argument is that a precise case length for all your brass will give you a uniform crimp. Well, that's true, but what you're doing is you're trimming all of your brass to the shortest case you have. And why would you want to have cases that are shorter like that? Because what you wind up with is cases that have less powder capacity. And if you trim it to the shortest case, and then later on you find out that you stumble onto one that's even shorter, well, what are you going to do? Trim all of the ones you just trimmed back to the latest short case? You just don't do that. It's just not worth it. And besides, our handgun systems are only good for 6 MOA at the most, and in fact 6 MOA makes us very happy. That's shooting an 1.5 inch group at 25 yards. We're not trying to load 1/4, 1/2 MOA ammunition here. The time that you spend trimming can be better spent shooting your handguns and refining your shooting techniques. Much more important than trying to gain a little bit of MOA accuracy out of handguns, which are only good and happy at 6 MOA anyway. So I just don't bother ever even thinking about trimming my 44 Magnum brass because it's never an issue. Plus, our bullets are designed to have what we call tapered crimping grooves, which makes up for a lot of the problems with minor differences in case length anyway. The crimping groove allows for different length brass to crimp effectively in the crimping groove. So thanks to good bullet design, we don't need to even worry about trying to have our brass all the same length for perfect crimping. See what I mean by the tapered crimping groove? See how effective, if that case weren't exactly the same length by a few thousandths or so, it'll still go into that tapered crimping groove, and you've got a good crimp fulfilling all the requirements you need of the crimp. Plus, the importance of neck tension cannot be minimized. We can control that. It doesn't require case length to be within 1/1000th to achieve good neck tension. So you really don't have that big an effect by having cases that are a little bit different in case length. Ergo, no need to trim your straight wall pistol brass ever. I'm sorry, I can measure my brass until I'm blue in the face, and I'm not going to find one. Look at that one. That one's way short of 1.285. I'm not going to find one that's over the maximum length. Now what we have here is our measure already set at 1.285 again, and we have 10 cases here that have been resized, reprimed, and neck expanded, mouth flared. And let's see what the measurements are for these. That's short of maximum. That's short of maximum. Short of maximum. Way short of maximum. Short of maximum. Way short of maximum. Way short of maximum. Short of maximum. Short of maximum. And fairly short of maximum. So you see, even after processing with sizing and neck expanding, all that kind of thing, you're still not going to get expansion or lengthening of the cases. We're good to go. No need to trim our brass. And for those of you who need to see exact measurements, I just took 10 random fired cases back from the range, and I went ahead and put them through the resizer, decapped them. Now let's go ahead and, so these have already been resized. Let's go ahead and measure each one of these cases directly and get an exact measurement. 1278. Remember, 1285 is the max. 1268. 1278. 1269. 1274. 1275. 1277. 1278. 1281. Now that one's a little bit on the long side, but it's still shorter than the 1285. 1278. So you see, there's just no need to trim any of the brass that we've encountered today. All of this. So shooters and casters and reloaders out there, at no time today did we ever run into a case either fired or fired and cleaned and polished or resized and mouth expanded and neck expanded. At no time today did we run into a case that was on the long side. So we just don't run into cases that are past 1.285. And if we don't, the case can be made that we just don't need to trim. See you in the next video.